Good afternoon and welcome everyone to our third FCF Town Hall with the CEO of 2020. We are very excited about this series of town halls that we've been having. Some great guests have been on to talk about programming, what's going on with all of our different efforts during the COVID-19 situation. And one of the most important parts of all of our efforts has been during the COVID-19 pandemic is to maintain communication with our stakeholders and provide services to our participants virtually. And so we've been able to do that. And so we hope that the series will allow us to continue to do that during this period. Today is a wild day. We have three guests, one that you can't see yet, but eventually will be able to, hopefully, that have combined over, or really on a track. This is what's really amazing about this next stat I'm about to give you. They're on a track over the next 3 years to give our Monterey County nonprofits, through their foundations and personally, more than $100 million and serve over 1,000 nonprofits in our area. And to me, that's just amazing. And so the sacrifice that they give personally and professionally, the time that they give to nonprofit events when they could be at home, means to me that they just don't write a check. They actually show up to our events and get engaged, inspiring other people to come out and attend those local nonprofit events where fundraising records usually are set and consistently broken each year. Their presence matters. So we have the right people to talk about the COVID-19 impact on Monterey County's nonprofits and our community. We are very pleased to have three very humble guys and very thankful to have them because they are humble. They do this service and they do this commitment to the community without any braggadocious attitudes. And that's what really attracts me to them the most. Our first guest is Dan Baldwin of the Community Foundation of Monterey County. And we thank Ann for her support of him and allowing him to do what he does in the community. And also we have with us Steve John of the Monterey Peninsula Foundation. And we thank Lisa John for her support of Steve and allowing what he does with the community and for all of us nonprofits. And David Gill of Real Farms. And so we thank Susan Gill too for her support of David, which allows him to do so much to help us. Um, I know my introduction is a little bit long, but given that we have the right people in the right room at the right time, I like to give them their roses while they can smell them, as opposed to when they're gone and can't. So I'm just very proud of these three guys and what they do. I know we have a lot of questions, and we're going to try to get through this as much as possible, as quick as possible, and get through as many questions as possible. One of the things that we have flashed up there is a poll. So if you would help us by taking a few moments to answer our poll, and then we'll jump right into the questions with the panelists. In the meantime, while we're answering the poll questions, we're going to still try to get David Gill's video up. So take a moment to address the poll, and we would appreciate that. And then we'll jump right in immediately to the question and answer period with all three gentlemen so that we can get through our time slot and not go over, because we have a lot of questions that have been pre-sent in by a lot of people. So we want to address as many questions as we can today. So the poll is up. Please help us look at it and share your opinions, and so that we can use that polling information to help us as an organization and hopefully help other nonprofits. Okay, thank you, Jessica. Well, we also have the gentleman that we call the voice in the background, so you'll hear him come on, and he has a list of questions that have been submitted to us, and we have some questions that are actually coming in as we are addressing the panel right now. And with that in mind, we're going to let Jacob ask the first question on his list, and please identify which panelist that the question is for.
So our first question here is for It's actually just a general question for the group here. With where we are now, how do you feel about the expansion of public and private partnerships, and how can philanthropy help?
Dan, you want to jump on that first? I saw you pull off your glasses real quick, so you were
Yeah,
biting at the chop to
that
get that
means
one.
I'm getting serious. We're going to need more public-private partnerships. I don't think there's any question. We've probably needed more all along, because it's a way to get the private sector engaged with the public sector to really be just kind of mutually sorting through issues, using the strengths that come from both sides. I think philanthropy has a role. Philanthropy in those kinds of settings tends to be able to fill in gaps, but
He
clearly,
lives.
yeah, there's David. But clearly, the public sector has way more capacity. But everybody's going to be stretched, and so it's especially challenging. It's going to require a lot of creativity, and I think that's one reason that just reinforces the idea that public-private sector partnerships really need to be emphasized going forward.
Steve, you want to grab that one?
Yeah, no, I agree with Dan. I think it's a collaborative effort for sure, with an outcome that would be very different if it were just simply one or the other. They both bring so much to the table, but in the end, it's going to be a blend of the two, and the two with whatever resources they both bring at this time, I think is really critical. I think it's imperative that we embrace this.
Davey, anything to add from a business perspective or as a donor?
Well, no, yeah, I'd like to just echo that too. Plus the fact that we need to see measurable benefits. We need to see the value. The industry wants to see the value, not only in the education of kids and the youth, but also using the funds properly, and just how organizations, how the nonprofits are functioning, and how they're using their resources. And I think those make good partnerships with the two of them.
Thank you. David, one of the things that I've been thinking about, and this question is from me to all of you all, is, how do the nonprofits work better together to help the job that you all do easier? And I'll listen to your thoughts about how that might work, or what do you all think about that, with us doing even more collaborative things, even in the fundraising arena.
Well, so right now in Seaside, Community Human Services and Gathering for Women collaborated on a shelter for women and families with children. This brings a lot of clarity to people that want to support this effort, and they see that there are two agencies together. There are efficiencies of scale, but the county has pretty much donated the building that's going to be used. So there's a public sector element as well. I think philanthropy really likes collaborative efforts. It really one of the ongoing perceptions, fairly or unfairly, is that nonprofits work so much independently, and I don't mean to just say in silos, but it motivates philanthropy to see nonprofits getting out of their comfort zone and focusing on solutions rather than like just sort of perpetuating their own organization.
Yeah, I think Dan, we work very well together, our two organizations.
Yes, we do.
And I think in sharing best practices is really the key to everything. Eliminate these landmines you come across by sharing what you know. And I know Mary Gunn, that directs, our director of philanthropy for the foundation, works very closely with a number of funders and grantees in our communities to learn really at ground level what the needs are. And until you know the need, you can't give. And we work, as I said, closely with Dan and others to determine how best do you meet that need. And it's through communicating with all the proper people like-minded individuals that really have their feet in the ground.
Yeah, I'd say that also is it's been a perennial question. When I'm in the private industry and the donor side versus the foundations. So the nonprofits are kind of in the middle, and Dan said it. There's a lot of silos out there, and we're all working in silos to raise money for everybody has their, you might say, their favorite charity, or there's an emotional or a personal reason they're supporting certain charities and nonprofits. And so it's hard to break those apart and get people to donate to a community type of fund that would benefit all nonprofits. It's something we've struggled with over the years, many years, is trying to figure out how do we leverage that and get together. Those are things that are probably going to happen in the future, because if you look at nonprofits the same as you look at a business, there's a lot of businesses that have to merge. They have to consolidate to survive. And I think the nonprofits, if things turn worse, we're going to have to figure out how, which ones have things in common, which ones can survive together. And there'll be a lot of questions to be asked and try to figure out, I think, in the future.
Yeah, we just recently had the, LA First Tee state that they are closing their doors for good in July. And that just broke my heart. I mean, I had a knot in my stomach when I heard that. So what you all are saying will come to pass, particularly as this type of pandemic has hit everybody from all angles. It makes it more relevant that people will merge and will become, one, so to say, in an aspect of, if they are doing, things that are similar in mission, to unite and do that. I mean, it's just a way of life. I mean, businesses have to do it. Nonprofits, that are struggling, like an LA First Tee, instead of closing, if would have been thinking about trying to resolve some of those issues and maybe merging with someone. Now we have, thousands upon thousands of kids, without a strong program like an LA First Tee available to it. Jacob, you want to ask the next question?
The next question we have is from the audience, and it's a question for everyone. How do you balance your work relationships with friendships, especially once you get promoted into a managerial role?
I like that question. I just firmly believe you never change your DNA. You are who you are in whatever role you were in. Whatever got you there, stay with that. Surround yourself. I'm always thinking that you want to surround yourself with givers, not takers, and like-minded individuals, and they really will help you become a better person. So as you change roles from whatever it is to the new level, you've got to maintain the same drive and the same belief that got you there, and I think you'll be better off in the end.
I agree. Go ahead, David.
No, I don't think I could answer it much better than that, Steve. That was a good answer.
Yeah, you just need to stay focused on your role. And if it's a nonprofit, then you're saying, what is your role with the delivery on the mission? And friendships are they're important in the workplace, but you're there to do a job and to stay focused on that.
Jacob, next question. Time is flying.
Would you say that people and/or companies are digging deeper to give to the organizations they care about, or are they cutting back on charitable giving, or they're moving their charitable dollars to address urgent COVID-19 related needs?
Yes. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I think maybe we'll just, to make it simple, I think maybe so we have a better idea. Maybe Dan, Steve, and then David in that order. That way we can move through them quick.
I'd say yes, people are giving. Yes, people are digging deep, but people's particularly in March and April, and it could come back again later this summer and the fall. There's uncertainty about people's own personal circumstances and so financial circumstances. So they're concerned and about what level of philanthropy, what level of giving they feel comfortable with. But they're, my view is that any piece of charitable giving right now is COVID related, because you're either giving to a frontline organization that's involved in food security or healthcare delivery, but even if it's to the Museum of Art or an environmental organization or the Big Sur Land Trust, they are suffering now, and they're suffering in part because, well, they're challenged and because of COVID-19 and the impact it's had on our economy. So any giving right now I consider to be sort of COVID related. But you have seen a lot of money, at least through our donor advisors, and going to direct services. No question about it. We actually saw between March 1 and March, April, May, we saw more than 100% increase, about 150% increase in donor advice grant making. It's a period where we generally do last year we did about 1.7 million. We did about 3.8 million in grants in that time period, just from those kinds of funds.
Wow.
Yeah. Very well said, Dan. Thank you. Only thing I would add to that is that we don't solicit donations to the foundation. And in that period, that same window that Dan referred to, we received a large amount of money from individuals that wanted to help us support the communities. So the money's out there, and it's just based on their ability to give, as Dan alluded to. So that's all I can really add.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's still a little early to say what the level of giving is going to be for this year. I think it kind of depends on how this year unwinds and how it finishes. But it is definitely, people are digging deeper, and it's a little harder to raise money. People are very cautious and concerned. I think we're very lucky. We live in the community we live in. Agriculture being such a big base in Monterey County, it's segments of it are really impacted, but segments of it aren't impacted as much. It depends on if you're in food service or in retail. But by and large, we're lucky that I think we live in this community. And even though the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry is severely impacted, hopefully we get going here again and things loosen up.
So Bill, we had in Sacramento, they do a big day of giving. They have it in early May. This year, they had no idea how it was going to go. They saw a 50% increase over last year. It's an enormous initiative. And Steve and I, our organization's partner on Monterey County Gives, I think that's going to be one of the real bellwethers on how people's comfort level around charitable giving at the end of this year.
Yeah, that'll be a good indication, Dan, for sure.
Yeah, you guys are involved in a lot of events. Can you just talk a little bit about what you've kind of seen on the canvas on how the COVID-19 has impacted events? And I know there's a lot of moving of dates and switching around. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Other than canceling everything? I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just a broom just went right through. And we currently oversee the Pure Insurance Championship, which directly impacts the First Tee and its initiatives across the country. And we're planning to have that take place as on the same date, September 15 to 20, but very different model. It's really a one-off model this year with the juniors. We will not have the juniors playing, which is really the basis of the tournament. But we just can't risk that coming across the country. 78 juniors traveling across the country, some for the very first time ever getting on a plane. It just didn't make sense. And our planning process is so far ahead of it. We couldn't plan that either scenario. So we went with the one scenario we knew we could do, which is drive funds to the First Tee, national and locally, to the First Tee chapter of Monterey County. And I believe in our one-off model that we put together, it won't change the amount of money that's going to go to First Tee, local First Tee. And in addition, we have built into this model incremental funds that will go into a first T initiative yet to be determined what that will be. And it will be something COVID related because it changed the entire landscape of the entire program. As you know, that your participants are at home and they're working, it's a digital divide that's been created, and we're tasked with eliminating that. So for that tournament, we're hoping it will stay. And who knows at this point in time, what will actually happen. But for us, that's the first thing. Next is the AT&T, which is, our primary funding mechanism for our philanthropic footprint. And we won't know anything until the tour restarts next week. And it restarts the first 5 weeks with no spectators, no build, just a TV, made for a TV event. And then the sixth tournament will be with patrons and hospitality. And that's really going to tell us a lot. We've got a nice runway ahead of us to learn best practices, what can and can't be done, safety, obviously government and our local mandates are all going to will affect our end result. So there's so many unknowns. We're really hoping that we can maintain, and our board's committed to this community that we've lived in. $160 million, and the foundation's contributed through the AT&T Publish program. And I know that our board's fully committed to continuing that. But it's so strange to be every day working on a different scenario. Our entire team, we have a small team at the foundation, working on all these different scenarios of what this might be. If that doesn't happen, how does it happen? So it's very challenging. Events, the same thing.
Yeah, so I think that what you're going to see, Bill, if these events that were postponed in the spring to the fall, if they're not able to take place, there's going to be big holes in their operating revenue scenarios. And sometimes these events, make up, sometimes it's 30% of their operating budget on a year. A lot of times it's less, but they're significant. And so if they're unable to hold those events, they're going to need to, either they're going to have big holes in their operating budgets, and or they're going to need to do what Monterey Peninsula Foundation is doing, and that's go to alternative scenarios and find. I know Boys and Girls Club really relies on comics for kids. They did a virtual event. They had an auction. I'm not aware of how well they did, but I really admired the nimbleness to try to pivot and take the best advantage of it that they could.
Yeah, I mean, we're all adjusting to that. David, want to speak?
I would share this. I think, like you said, the slate was cleaned, and all these events are canceled, and they're doing some webinars, video type of auctions, and so I think some of them have turned out pretty successful from what I've heard. So I think it's people are figuring out a way to work around it.
Jacob, I'll let you ask the next question.
The next question, since the RMD is not required this year, what can nonprofits do to encourage the donor to continue to contribute?
Yeah, well, I mean, the IRA, the qualified charitable distributions from IRAs have been a growing awareness of their usefulness. I think they just need to keep messaging. I mean, and maybe tweak the message, but this is really about donor relationships, donor cultivation, and not just this year. It's about developing relationships over time. So this might be a one-off, but I would not. It's not something that I would vary much on your messaging. I just stay on it, and people will make gifts in the manner that works best for them.
Yeah, I would just encourage you to maybe amplify the message a bit. It wouldn't vary on what your mission statement is or what your plan is. I just would amplify it a bit, because I think there are donors out there that have the ability to give and give a little more. And as Dan said, it's a time to grow your base, and this is a great opportunity for more awareness, and that will hopefully, if you continue with the communication, stay in touch with them, it'll feed for several years, and won't just be a one and done. We hope.
David?
I just think for private enterprise, I think an e-commerce solution to your business or another avenue is very important. And I think for the nonprofits, it's going to be huge. I think we have to reach out in different ways, and I think we can maybe even reach more people. And they expect to be contacted now. They expect to hear it through an email. They expect to be called, and it's not bothersome to them like it was before. Now it's the only way to get to them, and so I think we have to use that to our advantage.
Yeah, one of the things that I've thought about and constantly think about is, I talked to Susan Murfield back with Pebble Beach Foundation, and Susan was telling me that one of the things that you all had said earlier about us one doing the collaborative thing that Dan you spoke eloquently about, and also about us being more informative, being more communicative, with our donors, with our sponsors, our contributors as a whole. And I think she had a valid point. She was ahead of her time because I don't think she saw COVID-19 coming, but she said that everybody, even back then, should be ramping up, our communication. And now we're forced to do it. And it's been, I think, good, at least from our standpoint as an organization. It really has brought us closer to our donors and closer, to our participants as well. So, I think communication, virtually and technologically wise is going to be very important for all nonprofits. And we're going to have to make, this isn't going to go away. What we're doing now is going to be a part of what we do in the future. I mean, we're not going to let this just go, to the wayside, because it has been effective. We've learned a lot through our virtual teachings and now these town halls. So we hope to get more of our partners in. Matter of fact, we have some coming on next week. Bank of America and Chevron will be coming on the 3 o'clock town hall next week to talk about how they're responding, to our community and what they're doing. And, and Dale Curry's coming on, and Steph, to talk about, how we can now utilize, athletes and people who are at home, available to help these different virtual events and stuff like now, because they have nowhere to go and nothing to do. So, and how they can be more utilized. So I think that that this technology that we're using is going to be pivotal to our futures, because this, this stuff doesn't just go away overnight. And we will, learn how to handle it better. It will become a part of our existence, just like the flu or anything else that we have. But at the same time, I believe that we all will evolve. And that's what we're doing now. We're evolving to be better. We're going from good to great, as I like to tell people. And that's what it's forced a lot of us to do. Jacob, another question. I see so many questions coming in. We have a lot of nonprofits in the participating audience. So I know that from our registration. So I'm going to let Jacob ask the next question. I'm sorry for taking up so much time with my questions.
The next question that we have is from the audience. Are there any positive experiences that you've had during the current shelter in place?
Yeah, I've been riding my bike a lot. Yeah, Dan looks fantastic. I think we're going to backpedal one thing. I'll answer the question, but do you guys feel, panelists, Dan, David, myself, that we're like really bottom of the barrel when he's talking about bringing on Steph Curry?
My problem, I hope Currys aren't going to be disappointed that the turnout for today is so much higher than it's going to be for them.
Wow, I tell you, that's big. That's big, Bill. You are strong, man.
You guys are calling out people, and I will text them immediately to let them know that Dan Baldwin said that they're going to finish second.
Yeah,
so I'm sure they'll take the challenge.
I don't know that I support that. I don't put me in that bucket. I think that's gonna be a big one. But no, it's nice to be on here, and it really isn't. I just, I thank the audience for the questions, because this is a time where it's unprecedented. I hate that term, but it really is true. We're doing things we never thought we'd do. When we completed the AT&T, we thought, okay, great, now we're going to plan for 2021. Well, the plan for 2021 is not at all like 2020. And that's everybody experiencing that. I think everybody's business has changed. No one's been positive. Some have been positively affected, most of us negatively, but we're learning from it. And we're going to be better for it in the end. I mean, I've had my family here. my daughter and my son have been with us. They're 25 and 29. There's not a chance that 75 days would ever happen. And it's been great. Dinners at home and games and things like that. And really, it's the chance to be together. And I think that's what's really important in life is being together and cherishing your family and friends. You can't really have your friends around, but socially distanced, I guess. But that's really what it's really turned out for me. And I know our staff at the foundation talks about this often. And it's a reset button. But I think we're going to be better off. I really feel like we're learning a lot right now, and the donors and out there are watching this. We just need as charitable as grantees, we've got to do a better job going forward too.
Yeah, I think if there's a benefit, it really makes you examine what's most important. And I'm actually talking even now from an organizational standpoint. I think personally, we've all had time to reflect and appreciate, as much as it sounds like Steve, John, and I don't want to be next to one another, we actually do like being next to one another, and same with David. And the separation reminds you that you miss those opportunities. But from an organizational standpoint, you've distilled a lot of your activities down to what's really important, and you've found efficiencies for how and nimbleness as well for how to deliver on all that. I think there are positives. I can tell you from a philanthropic response, we raised $2.7 million in our COVID relief fund. And so it's both that philanthropic reaction, but the emails and letters, notes we're getting back from the grantees, over $2.4 million of that's already gone out. The appreciation that they're showing, not necessarily to us, but for the resources, the work that they're doing. It's a terrible time, and there are families that are impossibly stressed right now, and businesses that are impossibly stressed. But I think there are takeaways that are lasting and will be positive.
Well, it's nice to be on a panel with these two guys because they answer all my questions. I don't even need to say anything anymore.
David, you're just the eye candy of the bunch.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Say, Bill, I do want to mention that a little bit about what you said before is that I think nonprofits operate in a marketplace, and so when it comes to communicating, when it comes to donor relations, it's not like you're necessarily competing, but they do need to realize that messaging creates responses, and you can tell the story, and people will align themselves with your mission, and so if there are opportunities for either mergers or further collaborations, there's a lot of strengths that can come out of that. And I think the more that nonprofits, any organization, I was a museum director, I haven't always been on the granting side, always just felt like we needed to constantly be telling our story, and then so that people would align themselves with us.
We have one last question. I appreciate your time, and I want to get this in. So Jacob, I'm going to let you ask that last question. I'm sorry to all the other people whose questions we won't be able to get to today, but I got them on a 45-minute slot, and I know they have other commitments. So if you would ask that last question, Jacob, then I'll wrap up and thank our guests, and we'll go from there.
The last question is, in addition to how your organization supports this community, we know you and many of your staff personally give their time and money to support our community. How do you create a culture of service, generosity, giving in your organization that inspires your staff to participate and give back?
Well, in our case, they're naturally just drawn to the work. So I'll just leave it at that. And so it's kind of in their DNA. So I don't think I need to create a culture. They bring that culture to our workplace. Sorry to cut you off, David.
No, I was going to say our community is, I think it's embedded a lot in everybody here in our community, and I think it's easy to, you could lead in your company by, matching things, helping them with all the charitable projects they get into. So it just support them in their endeavors when they're involved in nonprofits and charitable giving, and show it by what you do too. So it's infectious, and I think but a lot of it's an instinctive nature for people to want to give back, and it's always more fun to be able to give and support. And you don't have to do it monetarily. It's really time and volunteer work. Volunteers are so important in our community, and I don't think any of these nonprofits could function without volunteers. And volunteers is a donation. That's a form and that's a contribution to our community.
Absolutely.
Amen, David. Well said, David. I couldn't agree more. We have 2,000 volunteers for the AT&T and 600 to 700 for the Pure. But again, I think when you get involved in the nonprofit sector, it's just part of it. You're in the giving area, and I know our staff they are all about committed. They're committed to the community, and they show it. They're involved in many fundraisers, and they're giving their time, and it's just as Dan said, it's part of the DNA.
I see that throughout, the community, and I know I'm the new guy in town still, so to say, but I see that all over Monterey County. I see it on people's staffs at the other organizations. I see people who really care, want to be at their jobs, want to do the work. I see it with the donors at the high-end events. People are coming and they're talking sincerely about the impact that your organization is making in the community. And so, it's a special area. Monterey County is a special area. And I've been in a lot of different areas. So from South Florida all the way out to, Carolina. But Monterey County is special. You do not see the participation from the folks with means and affluence and influence at events. In Monterey County, you see those types of people at all the different events, at all the different organizations, because they care. They truly care with a passion. And yeah, they're there to see their friends and socialize, but they care and are committed to making Monterey County be the best area that it can be. And that's what I see, that, the new kid coming in and I tell people, I've been bragging about Monterey County since I've been in North Carolina a few weeks. I've been bragging about Monterey County. And that's because people do give with a passion, and they are passionate, and expectations are high. They give a lot and they expect a lot, and that's why our participants get so much, because everybody's all in. Well, guys, I thank the three of you for your time. We have some great people coming on next week from Bank of America and Chevron, and Dale will be here, Curry, for sure. Steph is working his schedule to be here. So, I think the conversation to hear what those two businesses are doing in the Monterey County community, I'm looking forward to hearing from them about some of their plans. I've heard some good things coming down from Bank of America that infuse more money even in our area. So I'm looking forward to talking with them and hearing the questions, that our audience and participants will have for them. So I thank you all for your time. We try to wrap up at 3:45 at the latest. And you guys made it special because you guys are right in the mix of things. You see everything that's happening. You make things happen. So when you got the people who can make it happen, be a part of something like this, it's special to the people listening. Because a lot of the organizations may not be able to have these types of conversations with you, and now they've been able to at least, ask you all some of these questions that we presented to you. So I thank all you all for your time, and we're going to do this again next week at 3 o'clock. And I hope that all our events that we have scheduled will come off, and I'm wishing for a cure. So have a great, rest of the weekend. I know you all are busy, so I'll see the rest of the people at the town hall next week at 3 o'clock. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Bill. Good
Bye-bye.
work, Bill.
Thank you.
Buddy.
Well done, Bill.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.